Welcome to episode 86 of the Love in Action podcast, where we help make your business and workplace be both good for people and for profits. And here we believe that can only happen through acts of caring, connection, safety, inclusion, and belonging, the way human beings were designed to experience work. Well, Christmas 2020 is just around the corner, and I'm going to be honest. I don't think this is going to be like any Christmas we've had in the past. I mean, there's tensions between politics. You got the pandemic and social distancing. Do we wear a mask? Not wear a mask? Businesses shut down. I mean, there's a lot of tension going on, right? COVID cases spiking to record numbers. And then you throw in all the tension that is being brought to the workplace from these political divisions and from how we all feel about the pandemic. Add to that our differing opinions and issues when the extended family gets together for Christmas. Yeah, well, now we have a rodeo. But listen, I want to be optimistic because we have to be optimistic and we have to be hopeful here. So I'm going to start with a question for you, my listeners. How can we restore peace first in our workplaces, among our fellow coworkers, our colleagues, bosses, etc., during this Christmas season, before we go on our break? But more importantly, when we gather with family and loved ones around the dinner table, how can we restore peace among our family communities when we have differences, even before we walk in the door during Christmas? Now, I'm not smart enough to answer all of these questions on my own, okay? But thank goodness that my guests are. Workplace leadership and engagement experts Adrian Gostick and Chester Elton, best-selling authors of Leading with Gratitude, are here to offer a winning approach to diffuse our differences with the powerhouse practice of gratitude. Now, if you follow Adrian and Chester, you already know they are New York Times best-selling authors of books that have been translated in 30 languages and published in over 50 countries. That would include titles like, look at your bookshelf right now. You probably have a book by either Adrian or Chester. Titles like The Best Team Wins, What Motivates Me, All In, or The Carrot Principle. Adrian and Chester are also the co-founders of the Culture Works, a global training firm that counsels the leadership teams of Fortune 500 companies on organizational culture and employee engagement. Both have appeared all over the place. Today Show, CNBC, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, among others. And by the way, Chester and I had a great chat earlier this year. You can catch that conversation way back to episode 46. So go check it out. Chester and Adrian now join us to discuss how we can have a more peaceful, grateful Christmas season. Gentlemen, welcome to the Love in Action podcast.
Well, thanks. This is Chester. We're delighted to be here. Grateful, you might say, to help your listeners and all of us to celebrate the holiday season. And I'm always delighted to be with my dear and close friend, my partner in crime, Adrian Gostick.
Yeah, thanks, Marcel, for your interest in our work and for having us on today.
Yeah, it's always a blast hanging out with you guys. Well, for Adrian, the first time, of course. But Chester, I don't know if you remember, I know you're a big hockey fan and a New Jersey Devils diehard. And last time I talked to you, you sounded like my 9-year-old grandma on emphysema. Do you remember that? You screamed your brains out at a game.
Yeah. And, the odds that we won that game, I'm not sure what game it was, are probably pretty slim. We are not one of the powerhouse teams in the league yet, as a Devils fan would point out.
Right. Well, I remember you played the Sharks, San Jose Sharks, and yeah, you got beaten as the story went.
Yeah, well, Adrian, thank you for bringing back that wonderful memory. Pick on Adrian now, would you?
Adrian, are you a hockey fan too?
Oh, it's been a while since I followed hockey too closely, but I'm more of a English football fan or a soccer fan.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah. Well, guys, before we get into talking about gratitude during the holidays, we have a tradition here, and this is so fitting. So I want to ask you both to share your own gratitude moment in what has been a year unlike any other I can remember. I mean, what are you guys most grateful for in a year when people say, hey, there's nothing to be grateful for this year? I'll start with you, Chester.
That's such a great question, because it's really easy to go down the list of all the things that have gone wrong and all the things we don't have. I'm reminded I have a little bulletin board here next to my desk, and I put up various inspirational phrases. And one quote that I just recently put up that has been really helpful for me, religious leader Russell M. Nelson, he said, "Counting our blessings is far better than recounting our problems." And that was very helpful. I have a gratitude practice with my wife, Heidi. We've been happily married for 37 years. At least that's my take on the 37 years that it's been happy. And we ask each other at the end of the day, what are you grateful for? Give me three things. And it's just a lovely way to end the day. And we talk about, maybe it was an interaction with our kids, or the weather, or getting a certain, chore done. And, I'm just really grateful through all of this that I have a wonderful partner in Heidi that keeps me grounded, that keeps things going. I say she's my bedrock. She's my North Star. She's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. She's everything. And because I normally travel so much, I haven't been, and we've been able to really connect on a family level, and an emotional level, and very much a spiritual level. So I think that's my gratitude moment, is more time with the family. And again, counting blessings rather than recounting problems.
Love that. How about you, Adrian?
When we do gratitude workshops, and everything's virtual now, right? So we're doing some gratitude workshops with leadership teams around the world, actually. And one of the things we say is, okay, so what are you grateful for? But you can't say your family, you can't say your health, you can't say, the usual things. So Chester just said the usual things. So, but so it makes it kind of hard, because hopefully we're all thankful for our families. Some people aren't, because it's gonna, force them together. And I am, of course, most importantly thankful for my family, and that I am still healthy. So kind of pushing past that, then what am I really thankful for this year? And it really has been that we found, we can work in a different way. This pandemic has forced us, as we work with our clients, it's forced us to work and think in very different ways. And that's okay. One of our clients is Texas Roadhouse, which has just been named by Nation's Restaurant News as the #1 restaurant throughout the entire pandemic. They have found ways to not only, stay profitable, stay in the black, but also actually start hiring people when other restaurants were closing and letting people go. And so, Chester, in my business, we're now doing everything virtually. Everything is remote. And what we found out is we can find ways to make it fun and engaging and creative. So I've really been a little grateful for being forced out of my comfort zone. And sometimes you have to look at kind of hard things and go, thank you, the universe, for giving me that challenge.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Both amazing perspectives. Thank you, guys. So I want to get into the whole reason I wanted to bring you in. I was telling you offline, is just to frame this discussion around gratitude. For us to have a more peaceful, grateful Christmas season when we are in the middle of so much conflict and divisiveness. So I'm really just going to hand over the mic to you guys. I know that you have some rules that you want to go over, and this is going to be like, us gathering around the feet of Uncle Adrian and Uncle Chester and listening to it, because I'm telling you, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be stressful. All right. So let's unpack some of what needs to happen for us to be more grateful during this Christmas season. Who wants to start?
Well, I can jump in, Marcel, and start with this. You're going to have maybe there'll be virtual gatherings this Christmas. Maybe you will be with, family in a smaller, hopefully socially distanced way, all masked up. But there's always, whenever you get families together, there's going to be some, still residual political differences, right? Uncle Stan, just wants to tell you what he thinks about it, or grandma, and so there's a few things that we would recommend. Is that the first is that you treat people fairly. And that, it sounds like an obvious thing, but when you go in and you say, look, in my house, when I'm talking, I'm always going to make sure people are treated fairly. That means I'm going to be very amenable to hearing other viewpoints and I'm going to listen with empathy. So instead of, typically most of us have our ears closed to anything that doesn't agree with our opinions.
Yeah.
Instead, we're going to say, okay, so Marcel, you believe that. That's great. Tell me how that affects you. Tell me how the results of this election are going to affect you and affect our family. And why is this impacting you so much? To be a little bit more empathetic.
Yeah.
Chess, what would you add?
Well, yeah, I would, focus on what unites us opposed to what separates us, and I think that's going to kind of hopefully be a theme going forward into 2021, is that it's easy to pick apart our differences. Let's find out what unites us. We're a family after all. We're friends after all. Why are we friends? We had something in common, that drew us together. And so focus on that. Focus on upcoming events. Maybe there's a birth of a child, or there's a wedding coming up, or birthdays or anniversaries, and talk about those. Again, focusing on the positive rather than jumping to the negative. And I get that as humans, it's easier to go negative. It's easier to find those differences. So as Adrian said, be a little more empathetic, work a little harder on, hey, let's talk about how great the food is. Let's leave the election behind. Let's talk about, man, COVID's been good to you. You've lost 10 pounds, or boy, COVID's been good to you. You've gained 10 pounds. I mean, it can be positive either way, right? And really focus on what unites us and what brings us together and what makes us happy, as opposed, because when you go down that rabbit hole of our differences and conflict, you can ruin a really good meal. You can ruin a really good visit very quickly. And in this season, wouldn't that be a shame?
Yeah. What I'm getting from this so far is that the empathy piece, I think, first of all, it requires you to release from your own expectations that you have to walk in the house and wage war, right? So I think it starts with you basically stepping into this mindset of, well, I'm not here to have conflict. I'm here to get along and look at what my family members are up to, et cetera. I think that disarms the other side. When people see that you're not here to wage war, I think it disarms them, and it makes the atmosphere a little more relaxing. So you're not coming in with closed fists already. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
That's a great point. One of the things we do recommend, and this, we in our coaching, we do a lot of executive coaching, and we always help our leaders understand this, is you assume positive intent. It's just a better way to live. So when things may be getting political, or it's assuming this person really does, without whatever their political leanings, they really do want what's best for your family, for the country. And really being willing to kind of see them from that perspective, that really does change. One of the things that, with this election that's gone on is if you see it from an empathetic perspective, you see, oh my gosh, those blue states, this is what they were looking for. Those red states, this is what their concerns were. And you can make you more empathetic, or it can make you more divisive. What we would say is choose to be more empathetic. And especially kind of coming back now to your family, if somebody is making an effort to reach out and to understand somebody else, be grateful for them.
What's funny is I'm going back to, boy, you guys are really digging deep into the empathy concept. I mean, it's showing curiosity for the other person and why is somebody feeling the way they do. And again, I mean, empathy, connect the dots for us about how does empathy then relate to gratitude? Help us to connect the two.
Well, I think, in the family setting in particular, you just say, hey, I'm grateful that you're a part of my family and for all the experiences we've had. I think sometimes when we enter into conflict, our motive is, I want to be right and I want to win. And win what? So, when I am empathetic as long as everybody agrees with me, that's easy. When the argument lose the family, it's not worth it. I think one of the great pieces of advice that I got early on, Adrian mentions we do a lot of coaching, is whether they're executives or your parents or your brothers and sisters or whatever, is just take a beat. when stuff is, just take a beat, listen more. And to Adrian's point, really listen. Don't listen with the intent of, here's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to be so clever and so smart. Just really listen and think of it from their perspective. And then at a certain point, particularly if it's your home or you're hosting the dinner or something, you can even just pause and say, you know what, I really don't like the direction this conversation's going. I'm just so delighted you're all here. This is such good food. Let's just change the subject. Is that okay with everybody? Let's get back to, I don't know, doesn't the tree look great, or doesn't the turkey look juicy? And I think that's okay. I think you can. I love it when people say, you know what, I just don't feel good about where this conversation, it's not making me feel great. And that's not what this season's all about. So let's change the conversation from whatever that was to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Let's go there. A new topic.
Favorite Christmas movie. Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. A perfect pivot, Christmas movies that made you cry. Go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's going back to what Adrian said. That's the rule of assuming positive intent, right? It's really finding common ground with those you love that are in the room, right? Because I'm telling you, there's a lot more love once you explore and once you become curious about what's going on with the other person and in goodwill, right? Not to try to draw them into an argument so you can win the argument, but finding common ground about things that your uncle, aunt, cousin, grandma love, and then make that the focus of conversation. Yeah. There's another rule that you guys mentioned, walk in their shoes. I know that goes back to empathy, maybe even compassion, walk in their shoes. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chess.
I think what that means, we kind of have gone through that, is really look from their perspective. When Adrian said, look, when you see different parts of the country, they have different concerns, and we should be walking in their shoes. People that will live in rural areas have much different issues and things that concern them than people live in urban areas and different family situations. I think it really is, as Adrian said, just take a step back and say, if I were them, those would probably be my concerns as well. Just because this is my world doesn't mean it's everybody's world. And Adrian, I'm sure you've got a perspective on that as well.
Well, and it does lead us to sort of our last point, is when you're expressing gratitude, which you should at this holiday season, for people who have lifted you up during the year. Just even if you just know that they're there for you, there's some maybe creative ways that you can let people know very personally this year how much they've meant to you. Why not create video messages? Why not create a little YouTube message of you and your immediate family sending some love, and why you're especially grateful to grandma, to grandpa, to Uncle, Ed out in Kansas, wherever. Really using technology a little bit more and really putting a flood of gratitude out into social media, perhaps, of who you are thankful for. Just you're a big fan of handwritten notes, but being really specific, right, about why you're grateful to that person.
Absolutely. I got a letter from my oldest brother just the other day, and we'd been doing some video chatting, and I recorded this little video for a class my other brother was teaching, and my brother Tanner just took the time to write me a letter and say, I just love that video, and thank you so much for your little texts and your little notes. He's gone through a particularly tough year in his business and so on. He said, it really helped. And, I had no idea actually that it had gotten as bad for him just emotionally as it had. And he said, in some of my toughest moments, when my brother's reaching out to me just randomly, it just meant the world to me. And I thought, isn't that interesting? You never know. To Adrian's point, when you get creative, you never know a little handwritten note or a random text or a call. A good friend of ours, Adrian, Kim Purcell, called me the other day. And Kim is an old friend of ours. We'd done business with him for a long time, and he's having a lot of health issues. And just every now and again, I'd randomly drop him a note or leave him a voicemail. And he would rarely, if ever, respond. Well, he was going to some treatment at the hospital. He calls me, he says, I've got to be in this thing for some kind of a drip for 8 hours. So I thought I'd call you. And my reaction was, oh, so now when you've got absolutely nothing to do for 8 hours, now you call me. And we had a good laugh. And yet it was a wonderful few minutes to just say, hey, Kim, I think about you a lot. you know that you're in our thoughts and prayers as a family, and you're fighting the good fight. And we talked about those kinds of things. I'm rambling here a little bit, but if you get the spirit that, look, everybody's having a tough time, they really are.
Yeah.
And little random notes and calls and so on really do mean the world. And it costs you nothing, and it takes you, seconds, if minutes at the most.
Yeah. Wow. Guys, I want to transition to gratitude in the workplace, but I want to make sure that, is there anything else that needs to be spoken out loud about the Christmas theme of gratitude as we come together during the holiday season as family and loved ones?
I suppose just the last word is you really need to do something. Because sometimes we feel like, they know that I appreciate them. They know. And so whether it's with our family members or work, which we're going to transition into here, that you really do need to do something to reach out to not just, no, I sent the flowers, I sent the cookies. No, they got it. No, tell them specifically why you're grateful, why you love them, and what they do for you. People need that lift, especially this year. That specificity is really important. Here's why you lift me.
Love it. Okay. So we know we need to practice more gratitude at work. And so let's talk about how to do that in a way that makes business sense and helps our workplaces thrive. A lot of people are going to be listening to this also, after the holidays, as they come back from the break, back to their virtual work environment or hybrid work environment. So we're going to unpack all of that after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back. Guys, gratitude is so necessary for human interaction, but we find that it's often missing, in a work environment and even within the leadership ranks. So talk a little bit about why is that? Let's start there. Why is gratitude missing when we know it's so necessary for humanity?
It's such a great question because, our research shows that actually people are less likely to express gratitude in the workplace than any other place in their lives. And isn't that curious? Because like you say, you probably need it there more than anywhere, because that's where you're spending most of your time. And that's, what's driving a lot of our lives. So we take a look at that and say, well, as a leader, have you made it safe to do that? I love the expression, leadership is contagious. And the way you act and the way you express gratitude gives everybody else on your team permission to do the same. We talked a little bit about Kent Taylor's Texas Roadhouse. I mean, even in his leadership meetings, they always end with something fun and inspirational. They'll even bark each other out, which sounds like so silly, and yet it's so much fun. He goes, Tom, give us a little inspiration and bark us out. So he'll bring a quote from Winston Churchill or whatever. And then at the end, and literally these are senior executives in a multi-billion-dollar restaurant chain, and they're barking like dogs. And it's just fun and it's engaging. Well, Kent does that. Kent's the founder and the CEO. Do you think that ripples through to all the different restaurants? Of course it does. They have their rally alleys. They have their fun little awards, and they encourage each other to recognize each other. I think that's when you get a safe place, a culture of gratitude, is when the leader gives you permission to do it even without he or she. It doesn't always have to be the leader top down. It can be side to side, and have some fun with it. This is the season of fun.
Yeah.
As a leader, give people permission.
I found this astonishing in your book. So according to data from the U.S. Department of Labor, which is cited in your book, the number one reason people give for leaving their companies is they don't feel appreciated by their manager. And here's the clincher. Your research shows that frequent, genuine gratitude has been correlated with up to 50% lower employee turnover. Seriously. I found that astonishing. So what's going on here, guys?
And that's the $64,000 question, right, Marcel? We began this process, actually, it was a couple of years ago. We were sitting around with our good friend, Marshall Goldsmith, who wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And we're all executive coaches. Now, he's the executive coach to the stars. We're just executive coaches. But still, we were all kind of bemoaning the fact that isn't this interesting that of all the people that we coach, they're very busy, powerful executives, and often forget the little things like gratitude that has such powerful impact. As you say, lower employee turnover, higher customer satisfaction, higher employee engagement, all those things we're looking for. So why don't we do this? I mean, it's sort of a no-brainer. And that's why we began writing Leading with Gratitude, is first off, we wanted to understand what was holding us back. What are these myths? Like, I'm just too busy for this, or I don't, people just want money. They don't want this gratitude idea, etc. So we spent about the first third of the book debunking these myths, and they're really fun and interesting, the psychology of why we don't do it. Then the rest of the book we spend in, here's some real ideas. So we interviewed dozens and dozens of really high-powered CEOs and senior leaders who had discovered this idea, like Alan Mulally, who's the former CEO of Ford, who saved Ford Motor Company, Hubert Joly, who saved Best Buy, all these amazing leaders. And what they said was that in many cases, they had to have this rebirth where they realized people need these little touches. And it's not just about thank you. No, it's about opening their eyes and seeing the value that's being created around them.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let's get into those ideas if we can. Can we get into a practical discussion of how to actually implement a culture of gratitude? So speak to the HR executive or the CEO who's bought into this idea of creating a workplace of gratitude, for high performance. I mean, what are the steps? Is there a first step, and how do you build on that? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in here. I mean,
Okay.
it's really interesting. I think you got to talk about it, and you got to say, look, I mean, like any project, you say, look, here's where we are, here's where we want to be, and here's how we're going to get there, right? So you're very open and transparent about it. And then Adrian and I love to talk about rituals. Create rituals in your organization that really embeds it. And like any ritual, it takes time. Like the Texas Roadhouse, let's bark them out. One of our dear friends, Bill Manning, who is the president of Toronto FC in the MLS, he's got a tradition where he brings his people together once a month, and he talks about, what needs to be done and their successes and so on. And then he calls somebody randomly out of his team and says, who would you like to recognize? And I love that, Marcel. He's not saying, I'm going to pull out Adrian and recognize Adrian. He's saying, Adrian, come on up. Who do you want to recognize? And then he's got a fun, gift card that they can present. And so what he's doing is he's creating a ritual. He's giving permission, and he's giving people the opportunity to recognize things that he will never see. Sometimes as leaders, one of the excuses that we hear often is, well, what if I miss somebody? Well, of course you're going to miss somebody. If you manage more than 10 people, you're going to miss somebody. So get your people to help you not miss people, and make that a ritual, make that part of your tradition, and be really disciplined about it. Do it every month or every week. Start every meeting with a little shout out to somebody who had great customer service, and end every meeting with something positive. These rituals and the transparency of it really does help the HR leader coach up the senior executive, and gives the senior executive the opportunity to be the bearer of good news in a year where the leaders are bearers of so much bad news.
Yeah.
Let them be Santa Claus, once a month. And I hope that's helpful. I know, Adrian, you've got a bunch of ideas on this.
Yeah. What's another good ritual, Adrian?
Another one is, first, a couple of thoughts. First is, look for small wins. One of the CEOs we interviewed was Ken Chenault, who for many years was the CEO of American Express. 16 years. In many cases, he was the only African-American CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Remarkable leader, brilliant guy. And one of the things he told us, he says, I have to learn this. He says, you don't hold your gratitude to the end of the project, the end of the pandemic. He says, you are recognizing small little wins along the way. He says, because it's like taking a journey. And he says, we're looking for signposts. We're looking for signposts that we're on the right path. And this is especially important with younger employees, because what we find, we interviewed dozens and dozens of younger people, especially for a new project we're working on anxiety at work. And one of the things that these young people, many of them told us, was that if my manager doesn't recognize my work, I will keep trying it a different way until I finally do, which is incredibly counterproductive. you've got people that are just keep trying new things, until they finally get some approbation from their manager. What gratitude, when we teach our managers to recognize these small wins along the way, people know, especially younger people, that they're on the right path, that they're doing the right thing. It brings anxiety levels down, it brings confidence up, and it creates those organizations that really can move us forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Chester, most leaders are now working remotely, and they have been for probably 7-8 months now. Is there much difference in how they should lead remotely versus, say, in the office?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything's different. One of the things that I think has been a real benefit of the pandemic for leaders is the virus hit everybody, and so now we're all, working from home. We're all trying to figure out how to video teach our kids. We're all trying to figure out, how to stay safe. And so I think it created a lot more empathy in leaders, that I'm going through the same thing you're going through. In the middle of a video chat, my kids are going to come running in just like they did for you, and to be forgiving and, assume positive intent and all that. The thing that is much different is you're not going to randomly bump into people in the hallway. You can't just poke your head in or see that there's a meeting going on and, maybe I can help with that. So the two words that I think are really important for leaders that manage a lot of remote people and that work remotely is to be intentional and be disciplined. Intentional about who haven't I spoken to lately, and be really disciplined to make sure that you're connecting on a regular basis. Adrian and I have collected some wonderful, just simple questions that leaders should be asking on a regular basis. And, if you were working for me, I'd set up a time, Marcel, we'd have a video chat. And at some point I'm going to say, look, how are you doing today? Because, today could be very different than yesterday. Yesterday might have been a car wreck and today's going great, or vice versa. Things change so quickly. Secondly is, how can I help as a leader? What's going on? And then a third question that I love, and it's very inclusive, is, Marcel, we're working on this project, or we've got this situation, or whatever. What do you think? Give me your opinion. I'm going to include your thoughts in this whole thing. And if you're really intentional about making sure that you're connecting and disciplined about doing it on a regular basis, I think that's the biggest challenge for leaders, because it does take a little more time. You can't just pop into 2 or 3 offices in the next 10 or 15 minutes. You've got to set up a call. You got to make the appointment. You got to show up. And then, the last thing is, remember what they said. It's great to ask the questions. If you don't remember what they said, it doesn't matter. And increase that empathy. I think that's a big change for leaders that are working remotely.
Yeah. Guys, as we wind down here, I want to make the link between leadership and practical love. The whole reason we call this show Love in Action, love being a verb, not a feeling, that acts to inspire and empower people to flourish. Adrian, I want to start with you. How does a leader love well in business, day in and day out?
We love the theme of your show, Marcel, because of that idea. It's love, which is, until maybe the last few years has been this, we don't really talk about love. In fact, if you're talking about love in business, maybe you have to go see HR. Now we realize, no. The best leaders that, I've ever had, they love you. They really do. They know who you are as an individual. And so I think that's the first part. If I would add something to this idea of how you oversee your team with love, is that you realize in the old world, we would treat everybody the same because that was fair. Well, we've realized that's a terrible way to lead, because we are all extremely different. Now, you treat everybody the same with the rules, right? If somebody's sexually harassing somebody, no matter how great they are in their job, they're going to get fired, right? But with their motivation, we are all very, very different. And so we have to understand what really motivates each of our people. Chester, he is, driven by ideas like friendship and fun and teamwork. Me, I'm more of the homebody. I'm driven by ideas like autonomy and creativity and family. If I'm the manager of the two of us, I'm going to treat us in very, very different ways to motivate us, to be grateful to us. That's what we have learned, is that's why engagement levels aren't increasing, is because we keep treating people the same. We're not. We're all very, very different. You want to love people, get to know them and get to know what motivates them.
Wow. How about you, Chester?
Yeah, I think it just comes back to caring.
Yeah.
Does my boss care? I know it's an overused, phrase, but people don't. I don't know what it is, Adrian. Yeah, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. Yeah, I think that's it. And it is. Does my boss really care about me? Is there that genuine affection? And by the way, that doesn't mean you agree on everything. Adrian and I worked for a leader that actually helped us launch our writing partnership. Kent Murdoch, and he was a tough boss, and he was demanding, and we didn't always agree with him, and we'd have those disputes, and yet we never thought for a minute he didn't care about us. That he really was interested in helping us become better and giving us opportunities, and I remember one time very specifically, he said, I never worry about you guys because you're both of such high integrity. That was a simple little moment that, all of a sudden went, yeah, because we had been a little contentious. He really does care. He really does love us, and by the way, the ripple effect is that, and we'll never let him down. So that's the benefit, right? When I know my boss really cares about me and is concerned and is helping me, I'm not going to let him down. Hence I'm not going to leave. Why would I leave when I'm working for somebody that I know genuinely cares for me? To use your phrase, loves me, and you will love them back.
Yeah. Yeah. True story for me. The best boss I ever had was the one that loved me the best. And because of that, my performance was at an all-time high under that boss. So guys, we get to end this episode your way with one final takeaway. So I'm going to ask you each to give us that one thing that we can walk away with today. Adrian, I'll start with you.
One of the things we've been talking about, leading with gratitude, and this is a great thing to do at work. It really will enhance your employee engagement. There's lots of tips and ideas in the book. But one of the things I would kind of, as a last thought, was we've got to take it home too. We're with remote work, whether we're going in or we're still working from home. I mentioned we do a lot of executive coaching. One of my coachees said to me the other day, he says, who's an administrator of a large hospital system, he said, I realize, he says, I'm giving my best self at work, as you can imagine. And he says, I get home and I just want to crash on the couch. I don't want to really go through anything. And he says, this is not good. He says, I'm realizing I've got to give more to the people that I love. I've got to save a little of myself. So part of leading with gratitude is making sure that we love those that we love and giving them some of our best selves, our best ideas, but also our gratitude, noticing and seeing what they're excited about, what they're working on, and being grateful for what they bring to us in our lives.
What's your final takeaway, Chester?
Two thoughts, much along the line of what Adrian said. I think in this upside down year that we're all hoping won't end soon enough, is give yourself permission to forgive yourself. I think, a lot of high performers out there, you're very demanding of yourselves. You're working more hours, not less, in COVID because you can without the commute and so on. It's okay that it's not perfect. Forgive yourself. And it's okay if you've made a mistake. Forgive yourself, move on. And then my second thought is, and I found this really helpful for me, is start and end your day on a positive note. When you wake up in the morning, we've got a friend, he says, the first thing I do when I wake up is I go, thank you. I thought that was lovely. And so I thought, well, what's my little mantra when I wake up? And I've been doing this for a while now, that as soon as my feet hit the ground, I say, you know what, be kind today, be grateful, and be of service. Serve somebody. And then I mentioned it to you already at the end of the day, to end the day, with someone you love and you care about, and just count a couple of your blessings. What are three things you're grateful for? So forgive yourself, start the day on a positive note. Maybe you've got a little mantra. I have a friend who every day when he shaves, he looks in the mirror and he says, you handsome devil, don't you ever die. And, it works for him. What works for you? And then end your day counting a couple of blessings. I think for me, that's a grateful life.
Guys, I'm so grateful for this conversation. I'm better for it. I know our listeners are too. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today, especially at such a crucial stage of the year. Here we are about to walk into what's supposed to be, it's supposed to be one of the best times of the year, Christmas, gather with friends and family and loved ones. So I really, truly appreciate your wisdom this morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, how can listeners connect with you? Where do they go if they want to get more information?
You can go to chesterelton.com or adriangostick.com, and we, are Leading with Gratitude's available wherever fine books are sold.
Yeah. Follow us on LinkedIn as well. Adrian, by the way, is writing every month for Forbes magazine, brilliant articles. And we've got a gratitude journal newsletter that you can sign up for on LinkedIn. We publish stuff all the time. We'd love to engage you in the conversation on how you lead a grateful life as well.
Look for those resources in my show notes on my website, as well as Apple iTunes. So if you'd like to join the conversation and comment on this episode, hashtag Love in Action Podcast will get you there on Twitter or LinkedIn. And I will also be posting on this episode, and you can follow the discussion there. I'll be right back with your action steps for today's episode. Don't miss that.